And so our first session, our first panel session, will be on the economic opportunities and challenges of Indonesia's energy transition. And so with that, I would like to re-invite our moderator for this discussion, Megan C., the Director of Partnerships of EcoBusiness, to the stage to introduce our speakers for this afternoon's discussion. Megan, over to you.
Hi again, everyone. You'll be seeing my face for the last time today. But while I invite the speakers up on stage, we're going to see a QR code up here. And I want everyone to just take their phones out, scan the QR code to get our audience working a little bit as well this afternoon. We're going to see a word cloud soon. The word cloud here, the question will be, what will determine the success of Indonesia's energy transition? You can put a word, two words, a phrase, and we'll get to see the word cloud forming in just a little bit. So while everyone is doing their work, I'm going to invite our panel speakers here today. We've got Pak Zahid Juhaidi, Secretary of the Directorate General, New Energy, Renewable and Energy Conservation, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Pak Zahid plays a key role in accelerating renewable energy adoption, attracting investments in renewable energy power projects, increasing the renewable energy share, and also implementing community-based sustainable energy programs. Pak Zahid, please. We also have Mr. Karna Mohan, Vice President, Asia Pacific of Siemens Energy, a global technology company with products, offerings, and solutions spanning across the entire energy value chain. Karna also leads the development and implementation of financial strategies to drive the company's sustainable growth in the region. And he is also the Finance Director for Siemens Energy Singapore, serving on the board of several companies in the region. We also have Dr. Nuki Agia Utama, Executive Director for the ASEAN Center for Energy, a prominent think tank specializing in the ASEAN energy sector. Dr. Nuki also has advisory roles with the Asia Pacific Energy Research Center, APRC for short, and the World Economic Forum's Global Future Councils, and the Energy Working Group of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific that solidifies his impact on the global energy stage. Next, we have Mr. Enda Ginting, Country Manager for Green Energy Indonesia, and the leads the creation and delivery of renewable energy projects in Indonesia. And prior to joining Gurin, Enda was the Country Manager for Renewable Energy Company, leading Indonesia's first exposure to large-scale green hydrogen and green ammonia production and domestic use. And has also served in the public sector, leading his work in various aspects, including sustainable finance and energy transition. Last but not least, we have Pak Ricky Weisel, Vice President of the Electricity System Planning and Control and PT PLN. He joined PLN in 2006 and has held various positions, including manager in the Transmission Management Unit and Senior Planning Manager at PLN Main Distribution Unit and the Sumatra Load Control Center. With that, thank you all for participating in the word cloud. I think I'll just pause to leave that up there to see what kind of words we've been saying. I think efficiency has been the biggest word, innovation, finance down here for those who can't see it, resilience, policy for improvement, adoption. I think all these are really good words and phrases to take us into the discussion for the afternoon. Maybe speakers as well, if you want to turn around and just have a look. And if you wanted to reflect on that later on as well, open for that too. But thank you, Pak Zahid, Karna, Dr. Nuki, and Ricky as well for taking the time to be here with us today. Before we start, just allow me a few moments to set the context of our conversation. Mobilizing capital and implementing progressive policies are crucial to accelerating Indonesia's energy transition. Indonesia has committed over US $122 billion to affordable and clean energy as part of its drive towards increasing renewable energy in the country's energy mix. However, it needs about US $272 billion to meet its 2030 goals, far exceeding the US $20 billion Just Energy Transition Partnership deal announced in 2022. So to meet these targets and satisfy the growing demand for clean energy investments, Indonesia must reduce fossil fuel subsidies and establish clear, consistent regulatory frameworks for renewable energy. On top of this, relocating the capital to East Kalimantan Nusantara underscores the urgency of transitioning to renewables for long-term economic stability and prosperity. So what are the challenges and various opportunities in Indonesia's energy transition? What solutions are there to scale faster towards an energy transition? And how can Indonesia secure the necessary capital for its energy transition while balancing economic and social needs? So speakers here today are here to shed a light on all these big important questions. But just a reminder as well to the audience here, we will have a Q&A segment in the later part of this panel. So do put your questions in the same QR code as well when we have it up as we go along with this conversation. So with this, I'm going to start off with one question to all the speakers first. I'm going to go with Pak Zahid first. So Indonesia's energy demand, it is projected to grow by about 4.7% annually until 2030. It's also been reported earlier this year that Indonesia is planning to slash the targeted share of renewables in the national energy mix from previously 23% to 17 to 19% by 2025. And we know that ensuring a reliable and affordable energy supply will be crucial to the energy transition. So how does the ministry then plan to balance Indonesia's energy security needs with its sustainability goals and increasing integration of renewable resources?
Baik, jadi pertanyaannya bahwa pertumbuhan Indonesia adalah 4,5 ya, dan cara pemerintah Indonesia untuk mengawal transisi energi, bahwa saat ini kita tahu bahwa kapasitas dari pembangkit listrik di Indonesia itu sekitar 91,2 gigawatt, dan di mana masih didominasi oleh batu bara, coal power plant, dan energi terbarukan itu baru sekitar 13,5 gigawatt. Dan oleh karena itu masih sangat menantang untuk mencapai bauran energi yang kita inginkan. Dan terkait dengan net zero emission, ada beberapa challenge yang harus kita hadapi, utamanya terkait dengan bagaimana kita mengurangi emisi dari existing power plant melalui phasing down atau phasing out PLTU, dan kesempatan untuk mereduksi emisi CO2 melalui retrofit dari power plant coal menuju green ammonia atau biomasa, co-firing biomasa, tentunya melalui teknologi carbon capture storage. Dan isu yang kedua terkait dengan penggantian pembangkit energi melalui renewable energy dari fossil fuel. Dan kita memiliki beberapa isu yang sangat krusial terkait dengan penggantian dari pembangkit fossil fuel dan dengan renewable. Misalnya adanya mismatch antara antara kebutuhan pusat beban dengan potensi renewable energy yang tersebar di seluruh kepulauan. Dan kita juga memiliki tantangan unik terkait dengan negara kepulauan, di mana dari 17.000 pulau yang ada di Indonesia, 7.000 diantaranya adalah berpenghuni. Jadi ini menjadi tantangan bagi bagi kita. Dan juga yang terakhir adalah yang sama-sama masih kita cari solusinya dari sisi teknologi adalah intermitensi dari pembangkit energi terbarukan. Jadi itu. Kemudian dari sisi supporting infrastruktur, bahwa pembangunan transmisi dan smart grid ini menjadi fokus dari pemerintah saat ini, dan super grid akan improve connectivity antar pulau yang tadi saya sebutkan, dan juga mengurangi intermitensi. Dan bagaimanapun transisi energi memberikan solusi bahwa sistem listrik yang kita hasilkan harus affordable, minimal harganya sama atau lebih baik daripada non-renewable alternatif, kemudian juga harus handal, dan accessibility-nya juga harus terjaga, dan juga harus tepat waktu. Jadi secara waktunya juga harus bisa dipastikan itu tercapai. Mungkin itu sementara. Makasih.
Thank you so much, Pak Syed. I think the gist there was that Indonesia faces a unique challenge of being an island country, and so the infrastructure of transmission lines and smart grid is really the priority for the government right now as well. I'm going to move on to Mr. Khanna. Earlier this year, Siemens Energy called for 2024 to be a year of actions in Southeast Asia, with aims to pursue projects related to the energy transition. So in Indonesia specifically, Siemens opened a local office and signed a preliminary agreement with state utility PT PLN last year to help it achieve its renewable energy mix target. So why is Indonesia's energy transition of particular importance to the company and also maybe to the region? And from your experience and knowledge of the landscape here, what clean energy alternatives will it be prioritizing?
Thank you for the question. Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Absolute pleasure to be here. I think you mentioned, why is Indonesia's energy transition important? I would almost say that it's non-negotiable. And it's non-negotiable not just for Indonesia, but also imperative for the rest of the region. I think in your opening remarks, I think you alluded why it's extremely critical. If you look at Indonesia and you look at the region, this is where the largest energy consumer market is based. It's a growing population, energy demand is only increasing. If you look at the Indonesia economy, by 2045, it is projected to be the 4th largest in the world, right? And if you combine the two, and if it continues the way it is, that would mean more and more carbon emission in the air, right? So I think it's imperative that we move towards cleaner alternatives. If we have to meet the targets that have been set, the estimate is you would need 150 to 200 billion US dollar by 2030. That is a massive amount. And that cannot happen overnight. Which is why energy transition, in my view, needs to be step by step. And for me, for step by step, there are 3 key elements. Number 1, you look at the existing infrastructure, you get the most out of it. Number 2, you invest in renewables and explore the new technologies, example hydrogen. And number 3, you make the grid resilient. So if I look at the first one, how do you get the most out of your existing infrastructure? Sounds like such a low-hanging fruit, but that's actually the case. There are many, many technologies that are available today, and I think you mentioned one, my Bhasa is not very good, but I think you mentioned CCUS, right? Carbon capture, utilization, storage. That's one option. Moving from coal to gas, with gas being a transition fuel, is also a great alternative. We, as Siemens Energy, worked with PLP, Pacific Light in Singapore, where we upgraded their existing infrastructure. The result was, it is today the only plant in Singapore that has efficiency more than 60%. And what that means in terms of the emission, we took out 60,000 tons annually. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, what that is, that's about 9,300 odd cars out of the road annually. So you can do a lot with the existing infrastructure, and I think that's point number one. Number two, like I said, is look at investing in renewables, but also explore technologies like hydrogen, right? In Malaysia, for example, we have an MOU now with TNB, where we are developing a hydrogen roadmap for them to enable Malaysia to be a hydrogen economy. Similarly here, we are working with many esteemed companies like PLN to develop hydrogen solutions that are geared towards their needs. And I think that would be also one key lever. Last but not the least, you can modernize the existing infrastructure, you can build new renewable, but if your grid is not resilient, it will not work. So your grid needs to be super solid. There will be more and more energy mix that will play into the grid. You will have, because of the renewable, fluctuations in the grid, depending on the wind, depending on the solar. And I think it becomes extremely imperative that you invest in a grid. One, of course, is from a local perspective, but that also then enables regional sharing of power, which I think in the future will probably also be another tipping point towards energy transition.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khanna. I think as well earlier in the word cloud, we did point out those keywords, your grid resilience, new technology, innovations, renewables. With that, I'm going to move on to Dr. Nuki. Indonesia is advancing cooperation in ASEAN as well as Indo-Pacific through the ASEAN Power Grid, which we'll touch on more a little bit later, and the electric vehicle ecosystem as well. Zooming out into ASEAN as a region, tell us why ASEAN must increase its focus on shifting to cleaner forms of energy.
I think I do agree what Pak Sahid mentioned, and Ruling Karna stated clearly that the grid is important, and the issues of intermittency is also something that we have to tackle at the moment. APG has been around approximately 25 years. Surprisingly, in the last couple of years, these APG activities increased significantly. It was showing by the agreement between Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore to transfer their electron coming from hydropower from Laos to Singapore, and last year reaching approximately 265 gigawatt hours within 1 or 2 years. So those are one of the importance of having grid is being connected. You can share the load as well as you can share the supply, excess of supply. But another important part of this power grid is that we realize when the region need to increase their VRE, specifically VRE, the variable RE, it is not easy. There are a big problem when the region being asked to increase VRE. With RE, we don't have any problem. We have a huge potential of RE and it's already being implemented. For your information, if you're looking at RE itself, in power generation, Southeast Asia already reached 33.7%. Comparing to Europe approximately 40%, US is around 25%. The power generation from RE. So Southeast Asia is not that bad. But when we move forward VRE, then it's coming a problem. We don't have enough grid capacity. We are not being connected. And of course, smart grid is not there yet. And most importantly, VRE should correlate with the battery storage. What we are talking about battery storage in Southeast Asia, if we're talking about big grid battery storage, we're not talking about nickel or lithium. Those are for smaller capacity, like vehicles or mobile phones, for lithium is okay. But with the grid size capacity, the battery storage should be as massive as hydro pump storage. And then it's coming a problem, right? Where we can find a place for storage, which is big capacity like hydro pump storage. We did study on that with support from US and Australia. First identification is the Great Mekong sub-region area, and the other one is in Kalimantan. Those two potential are quite huge, but the differences is quite significant. Great Mekong River sub-region is a runoff type of hydro. While it's on the Kalimantan or Borneo is reservoir type. So we're talking about huge battery storage, reservoir is more suitable. But it's not there, the grid, yet. So there's becoming a sort of a huge problem if you want to increase the VRE, which is for wind mainly, is located in the northern part of Southeast Asia. The study with USAID, also with us, is showing that the peak potential of wind located in the northern part of Southeast Asia, which is Vietnam, and some of the location for PV scattered around in the region. But when you have those wind power and you have this big capacity storage in Kalimantan, you need to be connected. And it's long way journey, the transmission to be connected from that area to the Kalimantan area. So in the story of LTMS, we did very well, successful story, but the homework still a lot. And we need to work more on this interconnection. And right now we're doing, together with Indonesia, for last year chairmanship, on the interconnection feasibility studies, and successfully starting this year with USDA and also the force, connecting between northern part of Kalimantan to Sabah and peninsula to Sumatra, still going on. Hopefully next year will be launched and then going to the implementation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nuki. I'm going to just move on to Enda for a little bit. With your past public sector experience in reforming government energy transition policies, and with also your more recent private and current as well, private sector experience in this space, tell us about what you see as Indonesia's renewable energy potential. And I know that Dr. Nuki as well expounded on the grid, the importance of interconnectedness, the challenges as well. Maybe shed some light as well on what you see there too.
Thank you, Megan. First of all, thank you for having me here. I'm probably not going to be dictating how it's going to be done. We're probably going to be sharing. Another round of thank you for all for sharing with us your precious time and listening to our sharing. A very good question, I think. I was in the public sector and now I'm in the private sector. Is there anything that I see in common? Yes. Opportunity and hope. You've spoken about the potential growth of Indonesia, 4.56% in the region. Singapore also 1.9%. Malaysia, Philippines. At our carbon emission per capita right now, which is 1.5 metric ton, and a potential growth of 5% annually, you are talking about multiplying that by 280 million population. It needs to transform, it needs to transition, it is. Now, I think when I talk about opportunities, everyone else could quote what is the potential size of Indonesian hydro, geothermal, solar batteries, and what so forth. But there is an honesty to be said here that you talk about viability, you're talking about matching investors' appetite with the kind of project structure. Now, we talk about money. Money can't sit there doing nothing. It's got to move. At the moment, the movement is restricted to projects that can't be sustainable and restricted to certain geographies. And we have seen in the last couple of years, energy security is in the heart of every country. Transitioning that, exactly like you said, but needs to be done carefully, and it is happening. Now, a little bit about Gurin, if I might say, we're a Singaporean-based company, new company. We've got a wealth of experience of the people. We've got a pipeline of 7 gigawatts, and we've got projects, exotic projects. In Japan, we've got probably the largest to scale battery storage. In Indonesia, we are part of the consortium exporting energy from solar PVs with battery storage, 2.2 gigawatt peak, plus 4.4 gigawatt hour battery storage through a subsea cable to Singapore. And we see these opportunities, but we have to be honest. Every market has a different uniqueness. So you can't apply the same metric in Thailand as you apply the same metric in Indonesia. In Indonesia, there are tons of cases, and they're compelling. As we speak now, the example you mentioned, Pak, in Kalimantan, there's around 4 to 5 gigawatt IPP developers from hydro selling to corporate offtakes. Now, I see sometimes there's a tendency for the financiers to want to look at the menu and say, I want that. That's not the case. It's not the case if an Indonesian investor goes to Australia. It's not the case if an Australian investor comes to Indonesia. You've got to come, understand the local context, and prepare that case. Structure your project right, and it's viable. But viable to the local context. Because a can of a drink here and a can of a drink in Malaysia are totally different. If you constructed that right, understand the risk, you have a case. And you see that opportunity within or outside of government. Hopefully that explains. Thank you.
No, that's really good. We're actually going to touch on the financing bit and investment as well a little bit later on. But maybe I'll move on to Pak Ricky first. You know, as Indonesia's state electricity company, PLN plays a crucial role in the nation's energy transition. So tell us more about PLN's key strategies and initiatives to integrate a higher share of renewable energy sources into the electricity grid.
Okay, thank you, Bu Megan. I think most of them already explained by Pak Nuki, I think, in terms of how we can increase our renewable energy shares. Because maybe I believe, and I also agree with Pak Nuki say that one of the most crucial is to how we can interconnect with each system with another. Due to in Indonesia, we have so many archipelags, so many systems, and we can divide it into 3 categories of grid. For example, Jawa Bali is the strongest grid, have already interconnected each other. Meanwhile, in Sumatra is under developing, and the other is still on progress and still not connected, like Kalimantan, Sumatra. Many, and another system, maybe in this eastern part, we have so many, more than 100 small system, maybe 1,000 small system isolated that still need interconnectivity maybe in the next future due to the geographical and due to the demand problems. And of course, it's aligned with our purpose to support the net zero emission in 2060 by ensuring that we have many shares of renewable energy in the next few years. For example, right now we on the progress of revising the new REPTL, long-term system planning, because the last one is 2021 to 2030, which is we call it the greenest REPTL that PLN have and Ministry of Energy have ever made. But now, 2024, we propose more and more renewable energy development, especially Pak Nuki already mentioned about the VRA, variable renewable energy, which is solar and also wind power plant. That maybe right now is still not still limited due to the system constraint, grid constraint. For example, if we want to develop so many solar or wind, it also will affect the stability of the grid. So we cannot. We have to make it step by step, as our colleagues already mentioned. That's why I think one of the most crucial is how we can enhance the grid. For example, in Jawa Bali, it also can overcome the problem of mismatch between the generation and between the supply and demand. One of the problem in Indonesia that we cannot develop so many renewable energy due to the limitation of the demand. For example, in Sumatra, there is so many potential. In Kalimantan, so many hydro. In Sumatra, we have many geothermal, for example, but the demand is still low. Meanwhile, the center of the demand in Indonesia is located in Jawa Bali. More than 70% is located here in Jawa Bali. That's why maybe we will, in the next few years, we will connect each system. For example, we have program to interconnect between the Sumatra and Jawa Bali in 2030. So we can bring more and more renewable energy from Sumatra to Java. And we can also start to reduce the use of fossil fuel, for example, like that. Yeah, so I think another thing is that we also have to absorb the new technology, battery storage, energy storage, pump storage, and also supported by smart grid, smart control center, smart generation. I think there's so many ways to increase to achieve the higher penetration of renewable energy, but it takes cost, it takes time, and we can move step by step in order to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Ricky. I'm very glad to hear that's a very good consensus here on what's needed to move forward with Indonesia's energy transition. But I wanted to go back a little bit more into the big question, right, in terms of financing and investments. As we all know, Indonesia launched an investment plan to mobilize about 20 billion in financing pledged by global lenders to accelerate its power sector decarbonization under the JETP Comprehensive Investment and Policy Plan. So the CIPP indicated investments worth 97.3 billion that were needed to achieve the targets, including about 66.9 billion for 400 projects which need to start by 2030 at the latest. I'm going to turn to you, Kana, here, because these are huge numbers. What is your assessment of the investment climate here and the regulatory environment as well here for money to be flowed into these projects?
So look, not just in Indonesia, but if you look at the whole Southeast Asia, from a regulatory perspective, I think the good news is everybody has now placed in ambitious targets, right? So that's the first step, and I think that's done for Indonesia, but also for the rest of the region. If we look at the investments that are flowing in, and I think this is where the big gap is there today. If you look at the global share of investment in clean energy, the share of Southeast Asia is 2%, right? And if you translate it into what it would need to meet our targets, that would mean that from about average of 70 odd billion a year, it would need to almost double up, right? And that's a massive gap between where we want to be versus where the investments stand today. And I think to drive that investment, there were a couple of aspects that could benefit Indonesia a lot. I think the first is dialogues like this. So thank you for bringing us all together. I cannot stress enough that forums like these are extremely critical because it brings all the stakeholders together. And like you said, maybe have a consensus as well. Number two is obviously the regulatory environment. Policies, regulations should talk to the technology advancements and also support advancements. Third is, of course, the investments. So government investments, but also at the same time, building an innovation mindset within the country, I think, is critical to also then bring in the private players in the country. Last but not the least, if you really look at it today, there is a significant gap between the unabated fossil production price versus the cleaner energy fuel. And the one way to, of course, bridge it is carbon tax. And I know Indonesia has also plans of implementing carbon tax, and I think that's one of the ways in which many countries in the world are going towards. Just last year, the global revenue on carbon tax was in excess of 100 billion. And that was used to fund climate-related programs. And I think there's a survey done by a Canadian agency that if you were to impose carbon tax on the major industrial polluters, that would take out more than 90 million tons of carbon emission from the environment. So that's a significant lever that I think can also be explored when it comes to Indonesia, but we see traction there too.
No, thank you so much. I think you're also making it very easy for the audience to understand. You're putting in 3 points, 4 points. Thank you for that as well. So I guess taking that, to Nuki, we talked about financing as well. What we need to get there, how regulation plays a role in bridging the gap between technology, and the supporting providers as well. But we still know that financing will be a key obstacle for many decades to come. And a big issue as well is about the bankability of projects, especially ones with huge, longer investment horizons. So what, can investors really keep in mind when looking at projects that are deemed less bankable because of their longer investment horizon, maybe lower returns as well, keep in mind as they evaluate these projects? Surrender.
Let me try to remember the question. I think, okay, I get it. How should I start? Well, let's start with the building blocks. One, the cost of a solar panel has declined, reduced by 80% in the last decade. Investments in this industry has increased by 10 to 12 times by recent reports. The existing price of electricity from solar panel is competitive to the business as usual case. So you are seeing opportunities grow, you are seeing technologies grow, and in Gurin we are utilizing all that. However, it goes back to the appetite. If you can't stomach Southeast Asia, you can't stomach Philippines, you can't stomach Indonesia, don't go there. Go to where your comfort zone is. If you don't like spicy food, don't go to the buffet that has Indonesian food. But if you can stomach it, and you can structure it, and you can work, and you understand the local context, you can. Our project alone is a subsea cable from Indonesia to Singapore. It was a cooperation between two governments, the Indonesian government and the Singaporean government. And I'd like to thank you, sir, for the government support that we have. But there is an overall goal that we're trying to achieve, Megan, which is that to support the country's policy in reducing the cost of producing solar panels in country. Because the end goal of that is to actually reduce the cost of transition per solar panel. And I'm speaking about solar panels here, because that is cheap. Put a battery, put a solar panel, you've addressed the intermittency, it is affordable, it is viable, and there are transactions happening in country. So, is there a menu for investing in Indonesia? I asked the lady who was speaking on GIF, she goes, well, come to my office, you can see the menu. I said, what if I want to mix here and there and that? We can. Often the case, you see people coming in and I just want that. Well done, please. It's not the case. So for those investors who are keen, who are looking to channel their finances, Indonesia and Asia is a growing place. It needs it. It's got the right policies. We've seen recently the intent to reduce the local content with the aim of trying to make the cost of transitioning energy cheap, affordable. We have seen the omnibus law, and PLN has been actively there pursuing a PNL. We are seeing changes in the Indonesian investors' climate. We are seeing ISM doing business. Is there more to be done? Yeah, I'd hope so, because we want to streamline the licenses and get some more certainty over investment. But it is happening. What happened 6 months ago is happening differently now, as opposed to business as usual, the same old regime. We now see different regimes running different programs, different licensing permits. More importantly, we are seeing consistency with the incoming government and their commitment to transition. And here we are, Gurin, doing our part, helping Asia transition to 100% renewable energy, one project at a time. And we are looking into country domestic specific contexts. But bearing in mind, not all of the projects are viable, and because that is Indonesia, that is the Philippines, that is Australia, and you can't expect that $200 billion to come in all of a sudden, plug and play like your laptop. No, you got to work it. You got to find out what is potential, what is possible. So spend some time, allocate your resources, invest in understanding the country context, because that's where all the problems, the challenges, and the opportunities. It's not a problem, it's just a different way of dealing with things. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much, Enda. So I think tomorrow everyone will be going to the JIC office to look at the menu of projects to see where they want to pick. I wanted to go to Dr. Nuki. I think, again, talking from the ASEAN perspective, we talked about the ASEAN power grid earlier, and I'm sure, funding as well might probably still a problem over there as well. So how, in your opinion, can the region as a whole, unlock more capital to fund its energy transition?
Starting with the study that we did with Arena, over there, the RE Outlook second, we assume that in 2050, the RE increase 3 times, as also mandated or agreed during COP28 last time. Increased 3 times, which is 90% to 100% covered with the RE, and the end use on the industrial sectors as well as transportation sectors, 50% is electrified, including deep electrification for cement industry, steel, and so on, up until 2050. Those we require 30 times that you mentioned, 6.7 trillion US dollar. Those are the approximate numbers, including the transmission that it is needed to exchange the electron. At the same time, with the Governing Council request for us to develop ASEAN Energy Outlook, we did ASEAN Energy Outlook 7. We also assume in 2050 the RE approximately around 50%, and end-use sectors, electrification 20%, 22%. So over there, the investment needed is only 0.8 trillion US dollar. So it's 6 times, 7 times less than if we go full throttle in 2050 using RE only. So those are a strong message to the policymakers, because 6.7 trillion US dollar is the same GDP all combined together in Southeast Asia right now. So that big amount of money definitely needs huge investment. And where are we going to start? That's a next question. What strategy that we need to start? 2 weeks ago, I went to Sarawak. I visited I've been invited on the Hydrogen and Asia Pacific Forum. It turned out to be there are 2 major important things that we need to do. First, market-driven, and second, political will, strong political will. Market-driven, you give a very good example, Singapore. They have a huge demand. Now, countries are flocking to send their electron to Singapore, including Sumatra to Peninsula. The direction should be goes to Singapore, and now Cambodia also interested to send their electron also to Singapore, Vietnam, and including Sarawak itself. The demand-driven. But right now, in Southeast Asia, even in Indonesia, only Java, Bali having a big demand, but still having a bit excess power. So meaning that how we can increase the RE if the power is enough. So we need to be connected and sending out to some of the electron from RE to Singapore, right? So interconnection definitely one of the important things to do because of demand driven. And political will is also something that quite interesting during that discussion in the forum. Sarawak government having a very strong political will to be the hydrogen supplier. So they already started approximately 10 years ago, and now they can reduce the price of the hydrogen 7.5 US dollar, and perhaps lower than that, 4.5 US dollar per kilogram. Yeah, I still a bit lower than what the Japanese market bonds, which is 2.5 US dollar. So they still have some homework on that, but this is very good start to go somehow in the future for transitioning our energy sectors. We need to do something. We have to start with, even though we can't really transitioning everything because our economic growth and demand growth, as you mentioned, 4.5 is valid, and we still need a lot of energy. And in my opinion, we need to utilize everything optimally.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nyuhi. I'm going to just remind again that everyone, you can put in their questions in the QR code. I know we're running a little bit late, but I really have just 2 more areas I wanted to cover as well. The technology, we know that renewable energy is, not uniformly available, and we talked about, the interconnectedness, how we need to be able to connect grids in order to, place out the renewable energy where it's needed. So how is PLN addressing these technical challenges to ensure a reliable and also resilient electricity supply? And in your view, what technologies have you seen that are most viable in that sense?
Okay. Maybe you mean that some kind of like intermittency and so on and grid stability. We believe that PLN or try to ensure in order to get higher penetration of renewable energy, especially from the PRA, variable renewable energy, which is solar and wind. But I think there is no single solution for to get the higher penetration. We have to elaborate all the solutions, all the options, such as the first one is in energy storage. We can use the pump storage and also the battery if we want to develop higher renewable energy. And the second one is I think the most important is the grid itself. How we can enhance the grid, how we can develop so many transmission line and interconnect each other with Pak Nuki already most of what he presented to us is about the enhance or interconnect between the system. That is one of the key points. Our CEO always said that there is no transition without transmission. So if we don't develop so many transmission lines in order to facilitate, to evacuate or to transmit the renewable energy and to get the grid stronger between the grid, I think it's hard to get higher penetration of renewable energy. And the other thing is how we can develop, for example, in Indonesia right now in PLN, also we develop we have planned to develop the new control center with the newest technology, such as how we can predict the weather forecast facility and something like that, in order to get the precision of the renewable energy if it's already operate. So I think there are many solutions, there are many technology, there are many ways in order to ensure the higher penetration of renewable energy, especially for overcoming the intermittency and also the stability problems due to the higher penetration of renewable energy. That's why we have to collaborate. There is no single solution. We have to elaborate. All of them is important in order to support the penetration of renewable energy to get the higher and higher renewable energy in the future.
Thank you so much, Pak Ricky. I wanted to turn to Pak Syed. I think, earlier in my opening, I mentioned how, the coal fossil fuel industry here plays a huge role in the country's economy, providing substantial employment and economic benefits as well. But we know that the energy transition must be one that not only addresses environmental and economic goals, but also social goals as well. Important to consider the needs of vulnerable populations who might be disproportionately affected by the shift to renewable energy. What, in the ministry view, is the key to ensuring that energy transition is fair, equitable, and also one that does not leave anyone behind?
Saat ini mungkin momentum yang tepat ya untuk kita merencanakan atau terlibat di dalam transisi energi ya, karena saat ini pemerintah sedang menyusun rencana pembangunan jangka panjang dan juga jangka menengah, sehingga ini momentum yang tepat bagi para pelaku industri di energi terbarukan untuk bisa masuk di dalam perencanaan kita ke depan. Kemudian juga kami saat ini juga sedang menyelesaikan gitu ya, menyelesaikan RUU energi baru terbarukan. Ini menjadi payung buat kita semuanya untuk percepatan transisi energi. Nah, terkait dengan prioritas pemerintah di dalam transisi energi, karena pemerintah adalah pusat atau titik temu berbagai kepentingan, jadi kami juga harus menjaga keseimbangan antara transisi energi yang sifatnya adalah komersil tapi juga sosial. Tadi kami sampaikan ada 7.000 pulau yang terdiami, dan banyak pulau kecil di antaranya itu tidak komersil. Artinya kami di samping juga tadi disampaikan Pak Rizky dari PLN ya, bahwa ada Green RUPTL itu harus diimplementasikan, tapi kami juga harus membangun off-grid renewable energy untuk rural and remote area. Ya, karena accessibility menjadi concern kami juga, concern di pemerintah gitu ya. Kemudian kalau dari sisi bauran, kami juga mengembangkan biodiesel mandatory program yang saat ini mungkin kita salah satu contoh negara yang sukses dan konsisten untuk implementasi biodiesel. Bahwa target tahun 2025 kita ada 13,9 juta kiloliter. Dan saat ini baurannya sudah sampai B35, artinya 35% gitu ya, dan sedang menuju B40. B40 saat ini sudah sukses diuji cobakan di kendaraan ringan, di mobil, tapi sedang diuji cobakan di kendaraan berat. Dan arahan dari Presiden untuk diimplementasikan sebagian. Jadi yang di kendaraan ringan mungkin juga akan segera diimplementasi sambil menunggu keberhasilan di tes untuk kendaraan berat. Kemudian tadi disampaikan oleh Pak Enda juga bahwa untuk solar memang harganya sangat kompetitif dan kami dorong terus dan dominan untuk pembangkit net zero emission untuk menuju net zero emission 2060 adalah memang dari solar, dan oleh karena itu kebijakan terkait dengan pembangkit surya itu akan terus kami dorong sehingga bisa menarik gitu ya, dan salah satunya tadi sudah disampaikan juga lokal konten sudah hampir solve gitu ya, mudah-mudahan bisa mempercepat mengakselerasi dari pengembangan EBT. Mungkin itu, makasih.
Thank you so much. Pak Zahid, I'm going to take one question from the Q&A, just because we're running out of time, and I think this one is close to all of our hearts here in Jakarta. Air pollution in Jakarta is bad. I think that's pretty obvious. But how much investment will it take to retire the coal power stations around the city? And is it possible to power Jakarta on renewable energy? I think this is for Pak Ricky. The challenging ones, like putting their heads down.
Okay, maybe I cannot say exactly, but because due to our program, as I mentioned earlier, that in PLN we are trying to develop the renewable energy by focusing higher penetration of renewable energy to replace the coal power plant. In that case, we can start with the pace down. So we choose to coal pace down. That's why in PLN the new RPTL we call it ARED base. So it stands for Accelerated Renewable Energy Development by doing a coal pace down. So the main idea is how we can reduce the use of coal power plant. Like Pak Nuki say right now, what we can do is ensuring the demand can be supplied. So in order to do that, all of the potential, all the resource right now, we have to elaborate, we have to optimize. So I think in the next future, we still have a coal power plant, although in the system planning, in the new RUPTA, there is no coal power plant development planning, except for those who are already on progress. So there is no new, that is one of our strongest commitment in order to achieve a higher renewable energy. And we also note that in 2033, we will have many or higher penetration, and also develop the another resource that can, because if we want to phase out the coal power plant, it is not only we replace by the same capacity, but also the same role. Meanwhile, the coal power plant is the base load. If we replace with solar power plant, maybe we have to make battery energy storage higher than its capacity in order to, and also the solar power plant is maybe 5 times higher than the coal power plant itself. So I think that's one of the challenges, but we can make sure that in the next future we will try to reduce all of them. Meanwhile, right now, if we try to pace off maybe all of the coal power plant, we didn't have any other resource right now. Meanwhile, like in Java, more than 60% right now is supplied by coal power plant. That's why we need to reduce, and also our concern is the emission. How we can lower the emission by using technology like CCUS and something like that. Co-firing and maybe one of the options.
Thank you so much, Pak Ricky, for answering that audience question here. And because of time, I know that I'm running very, very late, but I've only got one more question to wrap up the entire panel. And if I may, speakers, to keep your responses to 30 seconds, okay? Just one. I think all of you have already mentioned it as well in some form in your responses. But if there's one thing that needs to accelerate Indonesia's energy transition, what would that one be? Pak Ricky, I'm going to arrow you again. You're going to start with Pak Ricky and we go down the line, okay? Yeah. Just one, 30 seconds. Just one that will help to accelerate Indonesia's energy transition.
I think already mentioned by another panelist. One of them is the strong wills of the government, and also participation or collaboration with another party. We cannot, especially in PLN, we cannot do it by ourselves. We need other parties to make sure that this RED program, this accelerated renewable energy development, will achieve its goal. So we need collaboration with another, including our regional, our crossroad interconnectivity. It also can help to achieve the net zero emission.
Okay, thank you. Enda?
But I'll look at you, but because this is speaking to you. From a independent power producer perspective, we'd probably hope to see a lot more streamlined licensing back for solar PVs and batteries, and doing what the government is doing at the moment, which is improving the legal and financial certainty of investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Enda. And Dr. Nicky.
Reiterating what we just discussed, also Pariki mentioned, political will is very important, and also creating the demand center. This one is too very challenging, but we don't have to. We have to also remember the third one: creating healthy and risking mechanism for the financial. We all know that when you invest in the fossil fuel businesses, you get 20-30% return. In the RE sector right now, in Southeast Asia, Indonesia also is 4 or 5%. The de-risking mechanism is not there yet. Financial institutions reluctantly to provide those financial support to this kind of project. So I think there's a job for the government to create those mechanisms and to make sure that the environment is there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nicky. And one thing. Yeah.
I'll make it quick. Regulation, investment, innovation, but don't wait. Step by step, start today.
Okay. Thank you. Ya, tadi semua sudah sampaikan. Jadi kalau dari sisi pemerintah, ya strateginya ya tetap pentahelik ya. Kita kolaborasi dari private sector, kemudian dari akademisi, dari NGO, dan juga media, dan juga dari community, sehingga semuanya sadar bahwa transisi energi itu sudah tidak bisa ditunda, bahkan harus dipercepat. Komitmen kita semuanya. Makasih.
Thank you so much. And with that, thank you everyone for your time and participation in this panel. Pak Zahid, Mr. Khana, Dr. Nyuki, Enda, and also Pak Ricky as well. I'm sure they'll all be hanging around for the networking, at least some of them. So please do catch them as well with your questions that I failed to put out here. But if not, I'm going to hand over back to Karina. Thank you so much.